Let's talk football. Upcoming season. Steve, have you been following any training camp or any of the stuff going on? Because it's okay if you didn't, because that's why you might here.
Well, I've seen that they haven't named a quarterback yet, so that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But I've been following. I always follow West Virginia football, but just seeing where the quarterback battle is going to begin. I think that's the number one thing we need to have established. You see what happened last year. Once a runner came in, our offense changed. So once we know who the guy is, I think that's going to really put us, how we always are at the beginning of the football season in high hopes.
Mike?
Well, Steve is correct. Much like last year, there's a quarterback competition. I do think it's more of a legitimate one this year. Like last year, you bring in a veteran transfer in JT Daniels. Everybody knew he was getting NIL money. He was going to be the starter. Neil Brown didn't want to announce it, and Pat Narduzzi ended up doing it for him. Kind of was a mess, but JT Daniels was going to be the starter and started. And then once the season went down the drain, you saw Garrett Green jump in there, and he lit the world on fire a little bit, got the win over Oklahoma State, solid end of the year, kind of got some fans excited, saw Pat White, Rasheed Marshall, who now works for the program, talking about the blueprint and the dual threat QB. I will say that while all of that is great, and it's a positive way to end a really bad year in a way, he is in a competition. I do think Garrett Green is the favorite. I do think he will probably be the starter. Honestly, guys, I do think Neil Brown already knows that in his head and probably has always thought Garrett Green is the favorite just for the fact that he has the experience edge and has been there so long. However, Nico Markel is a 4-star recruit. Michigan wanted him. He ended up at West Virginia. Neil Brown did a great job recruiting Nico in many around the country. I've been to Vegas, been to other spots, different, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl. A lot of people are surprised that Nico picked West Virginia in the first place. So he's there, and he is absolutely pushing Garrett Green. So I wouldn't be shell-shocked if they both played. Brown actually even told me when I had him on my show that he is not against playing both QBs earlier in the season if need be, not just if the year goes off the rails. You'd rather have a number one, but I wouldn't be shocked if they both get in there earlier in the year. So I think Garrett Green is the favorite and going to end up starting. It's not easy to start against Penn State, though, by any means. So I don't know if you give him a mulligan or what happens in week one. I will say, Steve, they both are kind of dual threats. So it's not like JT Daniels, who's a quintessential pocket passer and NFL style and all of that and worrying about his kind of individual self versus a dual threat. It's kind of two dual threat QBs. One's right, one's left-handed. They're similar. In terms of what's been happening at camp and spring ball and now fall camp, it seems like from what Neil Brown said and when we actually can see the team, because it's only been a few times so far throughout this fall camp, that Garrett Green makes a little bit more mistakes, probably has the experience edge that they bring up, but has a bigger ceiling in terms of big plays. But they also bring up, and Sean Regan and Chad Scott have brought up that, hey, he needs to play smarter and he can't just make up for a mistake with a big play. So that does give me some pause that it's not locked in, and Nico maybe has been more careful with the football.
All right. That was only 4 minutes for your first answer.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think it's really in depth, but I think the one thing answer. That if you could talk to the players, who the players want to run behind, who do they see as a guy? Because they see it in practice. Yeah. And the big thing,
and they're
too,
not
going to
say right now, obviously.
Right now, obviously not. But and the biggest thing, too, hey, I think it's one of those things that Neil Brown does decide to play both of them. You can see the in-time game decision of how the flow changes. So I'm happy that it's a battle, that it's not just a clear one. Because
and Nico did play a little bit at the end of the year to get that out there. He did play a little bit. It's not like he hasn't played.
Steve, have you played in a dual quarterback system much, and do you? I mean, a little bit, but like, do you hate that? Do running backs hate that, or like, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, you gotta do your job, but as you can see from games before,
you put up some numbers. It didn't stop you from putting up numbers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, kind of leading you on there, buddy.
You can see the electricity of, what we said, the dynamic duo playing together to where we fed off each other. I actually talked to Pat not too long ago about it, to where it's like, I don't think a lot of teams play like that. A lot of players play like that, to where it's like, you did this, well, let me do this. Let's keep it moving. I think that's, for me, that's what playing a dual system was for. When Pat came, it was just more electric for both of us to play. and everybody else to
Yeah,
get
and
touches.
this isn't the exact Rich Rod spread offense that you
Mhm.
played in that revolutionized, and even the Atlanta Falcons used in the NFL, as you know. It's not going to be that, but I don't think anyone else in the Big 12 does this. I think this could catch some teams off guard if you want to be optimistic about the season, and I do think that unlike nothing against the rest of the backs, but Steve was the quintessential top guy as the running back with Pat White as the QB, and it was a dual threat. It was a spread offense. West Virginia has a whole crew. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys at running back. CJ Donaldson's back and healthy, and he could
Mhm.
easily explode like Steve did. I wouldn't be shocked at all. People are comparing him to Steve a lot. This now his sophomore year. Hadn't even played running back before last year his whole
Yeah.
life. But Jalen
It's
Daniel
amazing.
or Jalen Anderson, I'm sorry. Jalen Anderson was a Big 12 player of the week once last year. And Jaheim
Mhm.
White, the freshman, he's a top recruit as well. He was a 3+ star. He's getting love from every coach. Anyone who watches practice would not be surprised if he gets some touches in his impact player as a freshman. So they got a lot of horses in
Yeah.
terms of the running game.
Yeah, and I think that you got to put your playmakers
Justin
on the
Johnson
field. You got
Jr.
to find positions for them to touch the ball. So with everybody out there, I mean, there's one football, but there's enough field for guys to get involved and make it very competitive.
So, the other big question, Mike, it's been the big question is defense. And I don't, when I see reports from camp, of course they're all rosy, but what do you think? Are these transfers looking as good as they're saying they're looking? Or, really that's where we're going to get caught with our pants down, right? Is defense.
Yeah, well, you could argue that's what happened last year. I mean, everyone wants to bring up the offense, and JT was not who he was sold to be.
And I will disagree with that because he played some lights out football. Like people forget, he didn't miss a pass for like one game for 13 passes. I mean, he was really good. I'm sorry, I didn't buy that.
Against Pitt and against Kansas, you're correct, 100%. And he threw 3 picks against Texas Tech, which basically ended his career. Like that was a bad JT Daniels game.
What do you mean? He's at Rice now. Okay, Rice.
Yeah, I know.
Rice.
Yeah, he's the Van Wilder of college football. He's transferring yet again. Sure. He's at Rice. And I'm sure he'll put up numbers there. And somebody actually, by the way, with the program didn't like that I dropped the Van Wilder comment. They thought I was making a mockery of it. And I'm like, that's what it is. I don't tell you. But anyway, no, you're correct. I mean, the beginning of the year when they started 0-2, that wasn't on JT. He put up numbers. He threw points on the board. He had touchdowns and a couple picks, but it wasn't like he was ruining games. The defense is why they lost to Kansas. The defense is why they had struggles early in the year, and that was with Dante Stills. So they did add some transfers. I don't think they're as deep as maybe they were even last year, but the coaches think they are. The coaches think they're a little deeper. I think what this hinges on is players that either were there or transfers stepping up. So, for example, Beanie Bishop is a name that you're going to have to hear a lot if this team is going to win and be good defensively. He's a transfer, great at Western Kentucky, was in the Big Ten last year, and he just told us the other day he was mad. He didn't get the opportunity he wanted at Minnesota. They didn't let him do a return thing at all. They didn't put him in a prime position to be the top corner. He didn't like what was going on there. He wants to be the guy who's going to flip the field, cause takeaways. He wants to be that guy for the West Virginia defense in the secondary. He's hungry to be that. He has to be that, though. Aubrey Burks is another one. Some coaches are saying he has NFL potential if he would actually have a big year. He's a guy who's been a leader so far. If he can flip the field, if he can get some takeaways. Man, hey, Steve, the issue really simply, they didn't force any turnovers for the first, 5 or 6 games at all last year. Yeah. You can't win that way in high-level football. There's some luck involved, but they just didn't get any. You got to be able to force some turnovers. That's been an emphasis all offseason, the end of last year, spring ball, fall camp to now. Everyone said it. And they're going to the fundamentals to try to make it happen. I think those guys are maybe even Sean Martin, who could step up and be a top defensive lineman. They need some guys to really, really step up. They can. The coaches believe in them. They've looked good at practice, but you never know when you're stepping up and needing to do a lot more than you've been. And the defense is a gigantic big deal, but I think they can at least deal with injuries a little bit better maybe than last year, but I don't know how deep they really are.
And Steve, I think, when we talk about the defense making turnovers, that really pumps you up as an offensive person, right? When you get, you got to see some of that. You got to feel like they're pulling their weight, right?
Yeah. Yeah, especially when I mean, if you're given on offense, you're giving the defense fits. It's a morale booster, or it demoralizes teams to where the defense got to go back out there again, and you score in your first drive, score in your second drive, get another turnover, short down, third down conversion, punt, change the field. It's definitely beautiful. But Mike, you said about the defense. I think the coaches are definitely having more emphasis on the secondary and guys doing their job to where. That was our biggest weakness was the defensive secondary. So I think we'll have a better year just because of, all the mistakes that were made last year. I know the coach is not going to want to do that again.
And then finally, I don't know. I haven't heard shoot about special teams. Which honestly, I can name some seasons.
I wrote about special teams, by the way.
I don't read everything you write, Mike. I read 90%. I mean, you got to admit, I pretty much am. I'm supporting you on Twitter. Really, if it wasn't for my retweets, I don't think you'd even have a presence. So let's be straight.
Absolutely not. No, the whole network would collapse without your retweets. Yes. Has Steve left us? Is this Steve?
No. Steve has the worst internet ever. Oh wait, okay. Steve, are you? Hold on, Steve. Okay. You're.
No, he's still.
Hold on, Mike. Steve. Your mic disconnected, so you need to it connected to your Bluetooth. You need to switch that back. And Isha, feel free to leave this in the YouTube video because I think people need to see how awful a former NFL player's Wi-Fi is, and really, I think we should start a GoFundMe for Steve and his Wi-Fi because this has been. I don't know, 5 years, I think I've been doing. Oh, it's plugged in. No, it's a thing.
Blow on it like it's a video game controller.
Yeah. It is astounding how bad his Wi-Fi is at his house. And I know why. He's got 50 kids. They're all on the internet. I mean, he's got 3 kids, but they're all on the internet.
Right.
And nobody listens to me. I'm always like, guys, get your kids off the internet. You don't see I don't have any kids, but if I did, they wouldn't be on the internet.
I have one, but she's not allowed to be on the internet right now. She shouldn't be trolling anybody or dealing with Twitter. She's 1 year old. Do you want me to wait on the special teams until we have Steve back?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
By the way, I just have to say it one more time. These are the best Nikes that WVU's put out in at least 6 years. Okay, and which is how long they've been putting them out. Anyway, Mike, special teams. Steve's back. His hair looks good. Let's talk.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, so special teams are going to look different. And I could argue that while Casey Legg was very, very accurate last year until the end of the season, special teams in terms of field position, which is a gigantic deal, was a big problem last year. So they didn't get much in terms of return yardage. They allowed opponents to pretty much start wherever they wanted and then had to put their backs against the wall defensively. And this year, Beanie Bishop again is another guy that could be helping you in the return game. So Beanie Bishop could be a major player if this team wins, whether it be as a corner on the secondary or in the return game. He's actually in a competition right now with Jayshawn Polk, who is a wide receiver from Kent State. Probably going to be more of like a lower tier receiver threat if he helps the offense at all. So it could be the whole Beanie show, or maybe Polk gets some love. That kind of will be how he'll contribute the most. But these are really, really fast guys. Great with their hands, and they both want to do the role. Beanie really wants to do the role. I'd imagine Beanie Bishop's going to be the guy, by the way, for him to transfer there and complain about he didn't get the job at Minnesota. You know how it goes. They probably kind of told him it's yours unless you mess it up. So I'd imagine it's Beanie's. Polk is certainly capable too. And then in terms of the kicking game, you have Oliver Straw, second year as a punter, one of the best in the Big 12 last year. Underrated force on the Mountaineers last year. Obviously, you don't want your best player to be your punter. That's why they were 5-7. But he was really, really good as a punter. So if he can even get that again and duplicate that again and then probably get better as an Aussie.
And he's only been punting for, a year?
Right.
I mean,
Right, yeah. He's literally an Aussie. It's like Aussie rule ball, and he's kind of using that leg and now becoming a punter in America. So that's big. And then Michael Hayes, who I think Mountaineer fans, Maddie, you're going to love him. This is a guy who, after his previous appearance at Georgia State, so a lower level of ball, was seen with a little, their trophy and the cigar. He's puffing away in the locker room. He has a swag. He wears really short shorts and just like dances. It's a Pat McAfee vibe a little bit, I will tell you. So he is a personality, but he also has a boomstick. Going back to McAfee,
I
coaches
remember
are talking about 50-yarder, 50-yarder, 50-yarder.
Yeah, when we signed him, I was like, this kid. I looked at his tape. He has a leg because I pay attention to kickers.
Yeah,
and he has a leg. And the former punter for the Raiders, the most energetic.
Oh yeah.
How do I just dropped his name? I just had it in my head.
It's not
anyway,
Marcus King. Is
Marcus
it?
King. Yes, I like a kicker with a
okay,
little.
okay.
I like one that runs around and talks shit. Yeah.
Michael Hayes, I think, is going to be fun for sure. 100%. I think Michael Hayes is going to be fun. I also think now the difference is Casey Legg was very, very accurate in terms of one of the most accurate kickers in the whole country. Neil Brown, everyone's saying, Jeff Coons is saying, oh, he can just really boom him, 50-yarder, 50-yarder, 50-yarder. You don't know how many attempts it was to get there. You don't know how accurate he's going to be. So they're saying he's accurate. I love the 50-yarder, but it can't be you hit a 50-yarder and then miss a 35-yarder. So we'll see what happens. But I do think it's going to be fun watching him. It'll be hard to be as accurate as Casey Legg. But I think overall special teams should be better than last year, and you can't get much worse besides the kicker. So I do think in the return game, that part of it will help the offense a lot, and they got no help a year ago.
From Jam Street Media.